Our next storyteller, I felt a little bit like Anthony did when he met with Noam Chomsky, and Noam Chomsky agreed to come and meet with him. For fans of The Moth, you probably know him. He is a writer, performer, and 5-time Moth Story Slam winner, and 2-time Moth Grand Slam champion. His work has been featured on McSweeney's, College Humor, and Risk. Please join me in welcoming Matteson Perry.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. Thanks for comparing me to Noam Chomsky. I just learned how to pronounce his name like 2 years ago, so that's flattering. I'll tell you right now, I did not break any rules as big as Joe. The closest I came is one time I walked out of a bank with one of their pens, and I returned it. And in my defense, it should have been chained down. Like that, I wouldn't have taken it then. So when I was in college, I dated the same girl for almost all of college, 3.5 years, and we broke up when we graduated. We kind of went on different life paths, and it was sad because she was my first real girlfriend, my first love, but I was also excited to be single because guys are the most delusional about their powers over the opposite sex right when they break up with a girl. Because when we're with a girl, we're like, all these women want to have sex with me, but they can't because I'm taken. That's what we like. So when we break up, we're like, my life's about to become a softcore pornography movie, basically. Like, I hope I can order a pizza without the girl trying to have. That's what we assume because we're dumb. And so I was also excited because I'd gotten a job working in Ketchikan, Alaska, which is this little town up in Alaska, and it's on the cruise ship route. And I'd got a job doing day tours for the tourists that would come off the boat, and I was going to run the Alaskan Jeep Safari Adventure. Yeah, it sounds pretty impressive. Problem is, safari makes people think, oh, we're going to see a lot of animals. And we never saw any animals. People will be like, are we going to see bears today? I'd be like, there's a good chance, sir. No. And so it was this great job, and it was a super fun summer. But if you want your life to be a softcore porn movie, Alaska is not the place to go. There's not many women there. There are 8. That's it. I got there a couple weeks into the season because of graduation, and every pretty girl was taken. Like, if you saw a pretty girl in this town, there was a guy with his arm around her, because he knew if he left, he would lose his turn. Like, he'd be like, oh, I just went to get okay, I get it, and he'd walk off. So just to give you an idea, like, how slim the pickings were, one day I saw a bar fight between 2 fishermen over a woman that was missing 40% of her teeth and was wearing a cape. 2 grown men entered into physical combat over a woman best described as a witch pirate. Okay, that was the girl situation up there. I had this neighbor. He was this old native Alaskan. He was on unemployment, or fun employment, as he called it. He'd just left Walmart because, in his words, it had gotten too political over there. And he explained to me, he said, Matteson, you got to lower your standards when you're up here. The general rule is if a woman's eyes are no further apart than the head of a hammer, she's fair game. So I was like, I'll keep that in mind. So that was where I was at. And but I had this one ray of hope, and her name was Courtney. And she was this beautiful girl, brunette hair, olive skin, beautiful eyes, and we got along really well. A lot of times after work, we'd go down to this bar, and it had a deck off the back that was over the ocean, and we'd watch eagles swoop salmon out of the ocean, and it was amazing, and we got along really well. She had a great sense of humor, by which I mean she thought I was funny. That's really what guys mean when we say we want a girl with a great sense of humor. Just laugh at our jokes. So it's great, but the problem was she was single for a reason. She'd just gotten out of a very painful relationship, wanted to stay single. And I knew she wouldn't change her mind about this because being a single, attractive woman in Alaska is awesome. It's like having diplomatic immunity. You can do anything you want. Like, if she wanted a beer, she wouldn't buy a beer. She would go stand in the vicinity of the bar. And within 2 minutes, someone would be like, can I buy you a beer? And she'd say yes. And sometimes she would get me a beer also using this method. She'd be like, will you buy one for my friend Matteson as well? And they'd get excited because Matteson is the name of hot chicks normally. So they'd buy her 2 beers, and she'd take them back to the table and be like, oh, there's a guy over there. It's not a hot chick at all. So this was the life for her. Like, you can just they're so rare up there. This is how you get Sarah Palin, okay? It's this effect. It's the Palin effect. It's real. And so, and not only did she like being single, you think, well, I could get in there for a night or two maybe, but the guys I was competing with, like, I am physiologically a man, but I was not a man. You know what I mean? Like, these were lumberjacks and fishermen and people working on oil rigs. I met one guy, his job title was literally bear wrangler. His job was to patrol a campsite and make sure bears didn't come around. Okay, she for a while dated a guy. He worked in the local lumberjack show. It's like you see him on ESPN2. They chop down things and saw them, and it's a competition. So this is a guy who has the muscles and skills of a lumberjack, but he's too good looking to be off in the woods. Like, at some point his boss is like, no, we cannot waste you out there. We need you in front of people. You out in the woods, you'll just turn all the guys gay. We need you here performing for the tourists. So these are the kind of guys I'm competing with, but I didn't care. Supply and demand ratio was not in my favor. I really liked Courtney. I kept going after her, and I just kept following around, and then we'd hang out. And that's how I became her non-sexual boyfriend. And a non-sexual boyfriend is a lot like a real boyfriend. You go to dinner, you go to movies, you're a shoulder to cry on, you tell her she's beautiful, but at 10:30 p.m. at night, you clock out, and another guy clocks in for the overnight shift. Yeah. That's really the best shift. That's a really good shift, the overnight one. So it's kind of like being a non-sexual boyfriend. It's kind of like competing in the Special Olympics. You run all the same races, but instead of a real gold medal, you get a lot of hugs. You get told how special you are. Just wonderful. So I just went on all summer. I'd follow around like a puppy dog. I'd be like, oh, I really like you. You're great. And she'd be like, you're great too. You're so funny. I'd like to marry a guy like you. I mean, tonight I'm going to climb on the back of Babe the Blue Ox and go home with Paul Bunyan. But you're great. You're great. And she really did like me. She was friends. But, you know, I was a guy, and I wanted to be more than friends. So the end of the summer came. It's getting closer, a few weeks away. I was like, I gotta be firm. I gotta make a move. I gotta tell her how I feel. And so we're at a bar one night, and I am, as usual, watching her purse. Yeah, it's one of the big jobs of a non-sexual boyfriend. And I'm like, this is her home base. She's gonna come back here, and when she does, I'm gonna lay down some game. So she came back at some point, and I cornered her, and I explained to her why we should hook up for 30 minutes. I didn't so much as seduce her as I just filibustered. I just, like, I'm gonna be like, Mr. Smith goes to Washington. I'll start talking, and I'm not stopping until she agrees. I'm like, we're attracted to each other. We're friends. We like each other's company. And I don't have the pecs of a lumberjack, but I'll make up for it in effort. I swear. And I'm just explaining all this stuff to her. And if finally she agreed to go home with me, it wasn't so much like she was excited. She was just like, your case has no holes in it. The defense rests. So we go back to my place, and I'm sorry to get graphic in a library, but we made out. With our tongues in the French style, okay? So pretty hot and heavy, all the clothes on, but pretty hot and heavy making out, and we don't have sex, but as we're going to sleep, I'm like, I'm going to be upgraded to sexual boyfriend pretty soon here, you know, and I'm imagining our relationships. We'll take night hikes to see the northern lights and make love underneath them, and we'll go sea kayaking and see humpback whales and make love on top of them, and it's going to be amazing, this relationship. And so she wakes up the next morning, look into each other's eyes, and she says, I was so drunk last night. Yeah, that's never a good thing to start with, because no one ever ends that sentence with, but surprisingly, I made some great decisions that I stand behind this morning. Like, that's never how I was so drunk last night ends. So she got up and she left, and there's the biggest rule of being a non-sexual boyfriend is that you don't have sex with them. You don't try to have sex with them. That's the job of the sexual boyfriend, and I don't want to get into the details. It's a union thing. But you are not allowed, as a non-sexual, you cannot try that. It makes things awkward. So there was about 3 weeks left in the season, and we stopped hanging out because it was weird now. And we didn't. She got a ride from someone else to work. We stopped going to the bar and sitting on the porch and watching Eagles, and it was really sad. And so at the end of the season, you take a ferry from Alaska down to Washington, and it's a 36-hour ferry. It's overnight. And so at the end of the night, we're all in the bar drinking, and we ended up together. And I said, I think you kept me around all summer because you liked me chasing you, I said. And she said, no, I hung out with you because you're my friend, and I liked being friends with you. And then she went to bed. And at that point, I was like, well, that's bullshit. Come on. But I got back to Washington, and I got in my car, and I drove off. And in this island I was on, there was just one 2-lane road. You couldn't go more than 45 miles per hour. And so now I'm on this interstate, and it's 5 lanes in either direction, and there's cars everywhere. I'm driving 70 miles an hour, and it's just like, it's super intense, and it's stressing me out, and I'm about to pull off and just take a breather, and this convertible drives by, and the top's down, and has this beautiful woman. She's blonde, hair blonde, it's gorgeous. And I think, there's a lot of cars here, but probably 50% of them have women in them. And then I suddenly realized, Courtney is no longer the girl, she is a girl that it didn't work out with. And as time went on, she stopped being the girl that wouldn't have sex with me and became the girl who was a really good friend, and it was a big part of an awesome summer in Alaska. So I really appreciate she got married like a year later. So we're not getting married when we're both single. Someday, but that's fine. She's a great friend. I resolved to try and appreciate the people around me for what they were and not what they weren't, and I'm almost always successful at that with women. I'm Matteson. That's my story. Thanks.